computer. I can see that now.
Okay. Hello, Erin. Hello, Nelius. Who else do we have joining us? Dr. De Villiers, welcome. Miss Devine, sorry if I'm not saying it right. Renee, hello. Dr. Bester, hello. Pauline, hello. Good to see you again. Dr. Nube, good day. Thanks. Valentine, hello. Thanks. Hello, Alzit. And Dr. JP Moore is here as well. And Dr. Maton. And Andre, hello. And Mary Nell, hello. And Dr. Reutner, everybody. And Dr. Ter Haar. So I'm going to move over to saying, to doing the introduction, which means I won't be able to acknowledge you all individually, but please be very welcome anyway. I see we're still coming in. Sorry has already joined us. Susan is joining us. Melissa is here. Welcome everybody. Derek, hello. Debby is our speaker today for this seminar, and she's just in the process of sharing screen. We'll give her a few moments, and meanwhile, let me introduce her. So, Debby Blaine is an associate professor in Faculty of Engineering and has been lecturing at this university since 2007. Her disciplinary research area is in materials engineering, and she teaches undergrad material science for engineers and strength of materials and hall mechanics. She graduated with B.Eng in that mechanical kind of engineering from SU, and then a PhD she did in engineering science at Pennsylvania State Uni in USA. And then she worked in Germany as a deputy manager for materials research and development. It was a powder metal manufacturer of automotive parts. So some of us are probably driving around with the luxury of her work. A significant aspect of what motivated her to come back to South Africa and academia here was to support the development of young engineers here at home. And this is why she's been particularly focused on understanding how our students learn and how to develop strategies to help them address and overcome the barriers of learning in her environment, her faculty. So she's been a SU teaching fellow in the past 2 years, 21-22, and received the Teaching Excellence Awards of SU in the Distinguished Teacher category, that's the top level, in 2018. And last year, she received the Faculty of Engineering Award for the Lecturer of the Year. So welcome, Debby, and thank you so much for joining us today. Some of you will have seen that the topic is about holistic learning and program development for that, or curriculum renewal for that. So let me hand over to you, Debby. Are you okay to share screen with us?
I hope so. So as I was saying earlier, I'm logging in from 2 different computers. So now we will see if it works.
Okay.
Let's see.
Thanks.
And
And
I
then
need to share this screen. Okay, let's see.
yes, it's working. The engineer got
Yay!
us there. Thanks, Debby. Okay, over to you.
Okay. So let's see. Now I'll just need to start the slideshow. Hopefully. Come on. Oh, this computer is now very confused.
Yes, we see the infographic for material
Okay,
science.
now
Yeah.
it's starting. Okay.
Okay. There,
Okay.
curriculum renewal looks lovely. Go.
Okay. Okay. So the topic for the seminar today is curriculum renewal for holistic learning, and it kind of stems from my teaching fellowship, where I was looking at a more holistic way of imagining the engineering curriculum for our graduates. Now, in engineering, because it's a professional degree, we have to comply with the exit level outcomes that are specified by international decrees that mean that Stellenbosch's engineering degree is valid in all over the world. So, if you look at the bottom of this of the world here in the well, actually, let's start at the top. At the top, you've got a whole lot of and the text is a bit small, but it's all of the kind of technical skills: problem solving, application of science and engineering knowledge, design, analysis, all of those things. And then at the bottom of the world, you have all of the professional skills: so communication, sustainability and impact, teamwork, individual work, independent learning, and all of these things. So this is what we need to have in our engineering degree so that we can keep our degree accredited. But actually, for Stellenbosch University, these exit level outcomes really align with our graduate attributes of engaged citizens, inquiring mind, well-rounded individual, and dynamic professional. So the bottom part there really speaks to that holistic graduate that we're trying to get out into the world so that they are globally ready for the workplace. And all of this is kind of embedded in our second Stellenbosch University's second strategic vision, and that is of providing a transformative student experience. So with this as a backdrop, I'm going to just share with you today some of the theories and frameworks and so on that I've been using in my journey to try and figure out what is the way that we can structure and design a curriculum that speaks to all of these attributes that should really be embedded in the curriculum without us teaching how to be an engaged citizen and so on. Okay, so the first model that I'm going to talk about is Quinlan's model for the leadership of teaching for student learning. So when I first read this paper, I really liked this model, and it is a model that is trying to create a holistic learning environment, and it's embedded in the know-be-do kind of framework where you want to create a systemic environment. Your organizational conditions must be conducive for student development. So this is not only your curriculum, this is your institutional culture, your co-curriculum, community engagement, community within the university, and so on as well. And then the academics within that environment should be role modeling a meaningful life. So we should be the examples for our students on the kind of graduates that we want coming out of our institution. So things that are involved in this kind of realm are self-awareness, authentic leadership, intentional actions, and integrity, along with a lot of other things. It's a really great paper if you want to read it. And then the third aspect is the leadership of learning. And for creating this holistic learning environment, here you are wanting our classes and our teaching and learning environment to be based on the knowledge of and involvement in fundamental principles or the scholarship of teaching and learning. So this means that we're engaging in reflective practice, we're doing scholarly teaching as well. And all of this then goes to creating a learning space where our students can thrive. So that's kind of the what aspect. If we now go and look at the how aspect, how do we get this environment? Then I have looked at Barnett's two papers, the one in 2001 and 2001, where he's basically looking at curriculum change. And the particular paper that I like focusing on is the one where he's looking at the super complexity, the kind of world that our graduates are going into. So we are trying to prepare our graduates for the fourth industrial revolution, diversity and inclusion, being socially aware, culturally aware, for disruptive changes as we've just experienced over the last 2 years, to be adaptable and flexible. And how do we build this into the curriculum? So first of all, the different parts of the curriculum, again, looking at this know-be-do kind of paradigm, is With the know part or the knowledge, the epistemological aspect of the curriculum, we are trying to develop subject knowledge specialists. And this means that we have to expose them to discipline-specific competences that they then can gain that access to that knowledge. Then there's also the B part, the self, the ontological part. So here we're trying to help them to develop into global graduates or professionals where they have self-efficacy and develop their identity as a engaged citizen in the world. And then lastly, the do aspect or the action aspect. This is the praxis, the practical part of how they are embodying the curriculum in their actions. So this is taking the knowledge and putting it to use. And here we'll be looking at how do you develop professional skills that are discipline specific. And all of this then kind of goes to creating the student experience. So we've got these two models. The one is this kind of systemic learning space that we're trying to create, and the other one is where the students are and what they are experiencing through the curriculum. And somehow we need to now integrate these two so that what we're doing at a systemic level is reaching the students and helping us to graduate students with graduate attributes. So the model that I looked at here is the Kipper and Rittman have got integrative learning, as well as a lot of other models in that paper that I've listed here. But this is the framework that I'm using to how to connect these two spaces. So the example that I'm going to use is for material science. This is a module that I've taught for 15 years on and off. It's a second year engineering module. And I think when I started in 2007, there was about 180 students in the class. And now we are close to 400 students in the class. It's a very theory intensive module with a thick textbook and not so much application. So in other words, it's engineer's worst nightmare. So what we do here is, and I'm going to, we have a long history of trying different things, and my colleague Martin Fenter and I have taught this this module together, and Dr. Melody Neves is the latest lecturer who has come in on this, and Melody engaged in a FINLO or fertile project last year, where the project's name was Contextualizing Material Science for Engineers through an Integrative Learning Approach. So a lot of this work was done by Melody, and I kind of mentored her and gave her my experience and my insight into this module, and we came up with this design. So one aspect of the design are case studies that we use in the module, and that's the kind of example that I'm going to focus on here, with giving you some of the context of the whole module design as well. Okay, so in creating the organizational conditions, we have to look at what is the curriculum design, what is the systemic environment that we can use in order to plug into this module and help to graduate these students. For the leadership of learning, what is the scholarly teaching that would support the different modes of teaching that we use in this module, and what kind of digital fluency do we have with the tools that we can use here in order to support this learning? From the student side, what sort of module content do we need to put in the module? So what epistemological content is in there, and then how do we contextualize this? How do we make them realize that they're not just learning this to gain knowledge, but they're learning this so that they can put the knowledge to use in practice, or what we call engineering in context. So I'm going to unpack each of those parts of the curriculum design as we go through. Okay, so first of all, looking at the curriculum design. So here, really what we did was we used the Sunlearn platform, and I'm going to show you a little bit of the Sunlearn platform later on, but a key to unlock all of the different parts of the Sunlearn platform was this infographic that Melody created. So I kind of gave her a big picture overview of how everything fits in together, and she then went ahead and made this beautiful infographic. So over here, you can see this is the first page. I think it's a 19-page PDF document. So the first page here, you have all the the weekly content. So this is the lectures, and then this would be the practicals that they're going to do. So this is the knowledge in action aspect. These are the projects, and these were peer assessed projects. So this is the group work and the professional skills coming in, and these are the case studies. So this is the contextualization within engineering. All of these case studies actually point to tasks that engineers would do with the knowledge that they gain in this module. So that was how we based our curriculum design. And then we looked at the scholarly teaching and digital fluency. So again, I'll look at Sunlearn just now, but first of all, I'm going to look at the learning theories that we used. So the first theory that I'm going to refer to is the legitimation code theory and the semantic waves. So here we planned all of the activities in the module, and we had a lot of activities. So there was also this very delicate balance that we had to have between amount of work that students were doing with all of these activities balanced with learning, and it was very purposeful. So that goes back to the intentionality of how we design this curriculum. So you can see here that with the semantic wave, you want to keep on moving from the abstract level or the conceptual level through some application, maybe some group work in application, then down to the contextual. Maybe over here you've got students thinking about doing some critical thinking, something on their own, then going back to a lecturer-led environment where the expert is exposing people to different ideas and different ways of thinking and doing some individual work, and so on. You move up and down this wave. Another critical aspect of this model is that this is not all happening at the same time. This axis at the bottom is time. So the important part here is coming to the next theory that I look at, which is the neuroscience of learning. And one of the aspects of the neuroscience of learning that I want to focus on is retrieval practice. So it's really important to have these scaffolded learning activities that are taking place over the entire semester, and that you're not just finishing chapter 1 and never looking at it again until you get to the final assessment. Okay, so the reason for this is that we know from looking at how the brain operates when it's learning is when students are engaging with new material for the first time, or listening to a lecture or watching a video, then their prefrontal cortex is engaged. And the way that Barbara Oakley describes this is there's a little octopus in the front of your brain here who's busy catching these balls, all these nuggets of information, and throwing them back in your brain. And there they are meant to be creating synapses, which are the chunks of information that then become knowledge in your brain. So that would be then going into your long-term memory. But the problem here is that unless we are repeating those patterns again and again, we stay here with the faint initial learning, and we don't embed those links in our brain. And this is not a metaphor. This is a physical synaptic process. You can see the synapses getting thicker and the nerves getting thicker in the brain as those connections are embedded or strengthened in the brain. So this happens where you get new information, you go to sleep, your brain sorts it out, you go and retrieve that information again the next day or a few days later. And so you go through that process. So again, coming back to the importance of scaffolding that learning and doing it over time to help students to really get what we always try to talk about, going from the superficial understanding to a deep understanding. And if you look at it from the neuroscience, how the brain works, it's going from a working memory and then it just fades into the background. But if you repeat it, it then becomes deep knowledge or deep understanding because those synapses are established in your brain. Okay, so those are the learning theories that we try to bring into the module design. Then the next part is the module content. So here I'm going to go back to the infographic and I'm going to give you a little tour of the infographic. So this infographic, as I said, it's a 22-page document. Let me full screen it quickly. And we give a little explainer video on how the students should use it. But basically, here's all the content. And as I'm using the case study as an example, here's an active link. If I click on case study 2, this is what I've got to do. Then I can go and let me make this bigger. And I can see, okay, case study 2 is about a car axle failure. It covers these parts of the textbook over here. It also links up to the project on metals, and it links up to these practicals, and this is the way that it links up. So let's say, okay, I'm going to start here and I want to know how tensile tests are employed. Okay, now I can go and look here, and it links to another part of the document. This is week 4's content. This is the themes of week 4, or the content, and then these are the other chapters that this content feeds into later along the line. Then this content here is baseline content that you're going to need to be able to complete case study 2, which is where we just came from, and also practical 1. Okay, what do I have to do in practical 1? So now I can go to practical 1, and I can zoom in here, and I can say, okay, in practical 1, oh, okay, there's chapter 8 again. I need to know this engineering standard for testing. These are the projects and the chapters that are involved in those projects, and so on. So you can see how this document is helping the students connect the dots between these what seem to be disconnected, disparate aspects of the curriculum, and they understand that actually all this work is there not to overload me, but to help me create these connections and understand at a deeper level how things are interconnected. Okay, so let's close that, and we go back to the presentation. So the next thing that we look at is the engineering in context. So for this, I'm going to go to Sunlearn. Okay, so here's my Sunlearn page, and I'm not going to wait for that to load. So I have that loaded up, and if I navigate down, I then get to the case study part. So over here, I can go down, here's the beginning, and then here's all the lectures, projects, practicals, and there the case studies. So if I click on case studies, here I am at the case study part. Here's my car axle failure, and here's the lesson. So if I click on this lesson, it's going to open up this page, hopefully. Okay, so here is the lesson, and here's a little introductory video that tells me what is going on here. So all that I'm doing here in this video is basically just explaining them how to use the infographic, and then let me go on to around about here in the video. So it's just about a 6-minute video. Then here I start introducing them to the case study and explaining to them what the case study is about. So the aspect here that's important is that this is actually the kind of job that a consultant engineer would do on failure analysis. And so you tell them, you know, you are called in a court case, and the insurance company wants to know, was this a failure of the truck or was it a failure of the driver? So this contextualizes the content and makes them understand why everything that they're learning would be used in practice. Okay, and then lastly, after they've done that, and this again goes with that retrieval practice and that scaffolding learning, then we have a little quiz that they have to do. It's a low stakes quiz. It is marked to drive participation, but the influence that it has on their final mark is minimal. And they can do multiple tries on this. I think they get 3 tries, and there is formative feedback. So here I've just filled it in and made some wrong answers, and you can see that there's a little bit of a formative feedback here as they go along. They can see which questions they got right, which they got partially right, etc. Okay, and okay, back to the presentation. So now you can see we've got this curriculum design, we've got the scholarly teaching, we've got a digital platform that is integrating all of this and explains why they're doing all these different activities. We've got the module content embedded in the activities, and we're making it relevant to what they're going to be in their professional lives later. Okay, what's happening? Let's go. Okay. But what you will notice over here is missing is that these little B aspects are missing from this. And it's not that they don't exist. Of course they exist. But how do we engage with this in the curriculum? And in my experience, this has been a situation where most lecturers feel uncomfortable. So all of the other stuff they can do, but how do they embed their own experience, their own personality, their own professionalism into the curriculum in order to model a meaningful life, a life of professionalism? So this is just inherent in being an engineer and in an educator, is that your experience and insight will help you to be able to connect these dots and provide those connections for the students. So in doing so, you are then also helping these engineers grow their identity in becoming an engineer and in becoming a proud global graduate of Stellenbosch University. So all of this obviously doesn't just happen overnight. As I said, I've been lecturing for 15 years. So in order to kind of contextualize that journey a bit, I thought I'd just give a quick overview of some of the activities that I've engaged in order to think about and come to this point. So I'm actually starting a little bit in the middle. This was in my 11th year of being here. I was on the team that did the teaching and learning policy when we revised that in 2017. And this was actually at a subtle presentation. But from being involved in that process, I was very aware that Stellenbosch University's vision for teaching and learning is that students and lecturers are meant to be co-creators of knowledge and learning environments. So that's something that I want to embody in my classroom. Teaching activities should facilitate knowledge building and actively engage students in their own learning journey. It must be contextual and responsive, and it must be holistic with individual and social aspects. So those were guiding principles for me in looking at the design of the curriculum. The other aspect that I take seriously is that in that policy, there's a very explicit mandate for all lecturers. It's not a nice to have, it's all lecturers. You are meant to be developing, professionalizing your teaching role. It's not a nice to have, it's something we're meant to be doing. So we're at a bare minimum meant to be reflective practitioners. As soon as we hit the ground here, we're meant to be familiarizing ourselves with different pedagogical theories and experiences and so on in order to build our scholarly practice, eventually becoming teaching scholars, and then if we want to go further, leaderly teaching scholars. So with that in mind, I've been engaging in Finlo projects for many years, trying different things out and learning as I go. I participated in the Scholarship of Educational Leadership. It's a year short course and learned a lot about basically social sciences and how to do social science research and work, which is a completely new paradigm for me, and how to bridge this gap between the scholarship of teaching and learning and your disciplinary scholarship, and how to leverage both sides in order to create a more holistic and integrative learning environment. And then I'm also involved in the South African Society for Engineering Education and regularly attend or help to coordinate workshops about engineering education. I participate in global engineering education research meetups and conferences to learn about what's happening there. We also, at a faculty level, have, under the leadership of Professor Karen Wolf, developed recommended engineering practices and have a community of practice where we regularly share our journeys in teaching and learning, what works, what doesn't, our different ideas, and then ultimately been awarded a teaching fellowship for last year and this year. That's opened up space for me to connect some of these dots and to start thinking more deeply about these things. So the last few slides kind of go backwards a bit to the why. Why should we do this? Many people say this is a lot of work and I've got to do my community outreach, I've got to serve on professional committees, I've got to do my research and have research outputs. This is a lot of work. But the motivation that I want to give for why, first of all, comes from our institutional mandate. We are committed to values of excellence, compassion, equity, respect, and accountability. And I see that as not excellence only in research, but excellence in teaching and excellence in globally being relevant in a global context. We're an educational institution and we should be at the forefront of teaching excellence in South Africa, in Africa, and globally. Compassion. understanding that there is a wide range of diversity of learning, of backgrounds, of access, of social capital, of money capital, all sorts of things, and trying to do that in a respectful and equitable manner, and then being accountable as a lecturer in my classroom for the content that I'm delivering and how I'm delivering it, being proud of what I'm delivering and doing that to the best of my ability in excellence. I believe that these are the values that we are meant to be embedding at this university, and that doesn't just stop at the window dressing level of research. So these all speak to the strategic vision of building a thriving Stellenbosch University, providing a transformative student experience for our students, and engaging in networked and collaborative teaching and learning. And then if you're not convinced yet, some student feedback from my material science class. So there were around about 380 second year Bachelor of Engineering students, and we did some feedback on this new curriculum design. 83% of the feedback was positive. There was 17% that was negative. Most of that had to do with managing time. So I think that if more people kind of had this integrative approach and students became more familiar with why they were integrating these different learning modes and different modalities in the classroom, they would become better at managing their time, which is also helping them to develop their professional skills. For the case studies in particular, I think over here, 21% of the feedback for the case studies in particular said that it was interesting and it elevated the level of work. 42% of the feedback said that it aided understanding by real life implementation. 11% said that it didn't help them understand the work, and a lot of them, a quarter of the feedback was that it was difficult for workload and time management. So it is difficult, it is a lot of content, but if I look back at previous years and how we've been trying to integrate this and the success we had since getting to this stage of the implementation, I definitely think that it was worth it. And then finally, if the qualitative research doesn't convince you, oh, here's a little quote. I'll just wait a few seconds for you to read that. If you can read that, I don't know how small your screens are.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So another thing that I think to contextualize this particular class, these are second year in 2021. These are students who haven't met their colleagues yet, their peers. They had the entire first year, 2020 was online. They don't know who their peers are. They were only being taught online. We forced them to come to the face-to-face classes, but we had a really strong embedded online digital learning environment to support that platform. But I think that it was the design of this and the amount of thought and energy, and that really goes to Melody, who put in so much energy in this design, that that's worked. And then, so to the quantitative, so with that cohort, that 2020 was online and had virtual assessments where we all know that the students passed, even though some of them shouldn't have, and that there was also a lot of cheating, and the validity of the results from 2020 has been brought into question. So 2021 was a major fallout year, especially for our second year students who were the first time on campus. I think a shining example of why this was a success. So material science typically has a pass rate of 85%. So we dropped to 10%, and it typically has an average final mark of about 58%, and we dropped about 4% there. But compared, this is another module, strength of materials. This is the same students, exactly the same students, 2 modules, same year, same students. But this didn't have the integrative approach. And I taught both modules, by the way. So this we didn't have as much of an integrative approach, and you can see this was a typical result for our second year engineering students across the faculty at the end of 2021. 53% pass rate, 47% of this class. So that's over here around 380. So half of this class is about 150 students are going to be back in the class this year again. 47% did not pass, and the average final mark was 48%. So that is my final rah for trying to convince you to put in the effort and to live up to Stellenbosch University's value system, their vision, and to take your teaching and learning seriously. Okay, and that's all from me. Thanks so much.
Wow, that was fantastic. Thank you so much, Debbie. And there are so many hands clapping now and hearts and hands going up while you were speaking. And colleagues, I must tell you that we didn't tell Debbie to walk the party line or talk the party talk now. When she cites policy and represents policy and institutional values that way, it is because of the reasons she put forth. And to me, it was very much a holistic part of what is so holistic about this experience. Now, we've got hands up. Let me see. Fantastic. Sharon, I was hoping you would open your mic. Yes.
I just want to say, I think this was the best hour spent, not only in this year, but a few years. I just want to say thank you so much. This was mind-blowing, mind-blowing. A very technical question now. This is because that's one of the things that I'm thinking of. I love the whole idea of the flow chart. Was the flow chart developed separately and then just copied into Sunlearn? Or maybe my colleagues will think that's a ridiculous question, but I'm trying to think what's the technical thing? How do you get the flow chart? So do you create the flow chart from your Sunlearn platform itself? Because
No.
I've never investigated that before.
Okay, so so I actually think that the person who should be giving a masterclass on this is Melody Neves. So I basically sketched out on paper we took what is usually in the module framework, just what you make in Word or whatever, and the different week by week content, and then I did, I guess, concept maps or mind maps of how I know from having taught for so long how the different things are connected. And then Melody spent hours through a Finlo project creating and she created this in PowerPoint. She created those slides basically, but it's a A4 slide in portrait with the active links, and it really is hours of work. So that's why I'm saying, if we committed to teaching and learning, this is not something that every single lecturer can just do. This is things that we should be having resources and support from our design teams, where you get the lecturers who can have a few meetings and then say, okay, I want a template that looks like this for my module. But actually doing the work of this is literally hours and hours of work, checking all the links, making the links and everything. So it's a 22-page document, 22 slides with links, and a lot of planning went into how we would structure that, and then drafts and revisions and so on.
Respect for that. Sharon, are you happy there? Can we move on to
Yes,
Barnett?
very, very happy about that. I'm going to get the design team on board now. Very happy.
Yeah, and we also hear the collaboration, how necessary that is. But let's hear Barnett.
Thank you, Gerda. I hope you're well. Thank you so much, Debbie. This was so inspirational. First of all, I want to say thank you for an engineer valuing social science. I'm doing the Scholarship of Educational Leadership course this year, so you've inspired me once again for that too. But the question I have is related to what the previous, I'm sorry, I can't remember now, was the person who spoke before me, is how difficult it was for you to make Sunlearn appear as engaging as that wonderful PDF document, because we're busy developing a hybrid course for first years. And my question will always be Sunlearn's restrictions. Sunlearn not being as creative as I would like it to be, if I can put it like that. So how do you make the Sunlearn appear as engaging as that? Yeah, I think that's my question.
Okay, so I'm going to actually just go to a previous module that I taught. Let's use this one here. So the design that I used, started actually in 2020, where I was trying to think of like, what's a design that will work? And actually, I think that it's actually, this kind of design has already now kind of been implemented into the new design of Sunlearn. But what I based it on is a week by week, whatever set here. I can see now this is not very big on the screen. Maybe I can make this a bit bigger so we can see what's going on. Okay, so for instance, this was this course was introduction. It was intercultural communication and competency for engineers, and so here, week 1, the dates. What do you have to do? Self-paced learning. These are the slides that you need to watch, and then give various options here. What is your assigned reading? Have it all there. There's a weekly MS Teams meeting that you need, and this is after the MS Teams. Here's the recording, and in this week the activity was a collaborative notebook. And then if you go to the next week, using the same structure, what is your activity that you have to do? These are the self-paced learning slides you need to go through. This is the assigned reading or watching. In this case, it was a TED talk, and the Teams meeting. Go and look at that. So you can see that this was all online teaching. This was due to COVID. That's why there isn't face-to-face lectures and so on in this. But I think having a consistent design with clear headings is creating that template for yourself, and then using that template again and again, so that every time the student comes back to the website for the next week, it's the same structure and they become familiar with it, and they don't waste time looking for stuff. I don't know if that is enough of a, I mean, the infographic, it doesn't link to Sunlearn. It's a separate PDF document. And then if you look over here, so on material science, if you go over here, but it still is, you know, here's the course info, the module framework, here's the infographic, then each week, what's happening each week, then the activities, the case studies, the projects, practicals, and then any kind of supplemental information. So this was extra learning resources and so on. So just spending some time to think about the different topics and headings that you want on your Sunlearn page, I think is the way to go.
So
Thank you,
Debbie. Sorry, Barnett, for interrupting me, and thanks. That was an important question. Lots of colleagues resonate there. Let's hear Prof. Pratika, and then Jaden, and then Alden.
Thank you, Debbie. That was really great. I really enjoyed looking at that infographic because, you know, I look at students, they barely read the textbook. They just work through the examples, and then presenting information that is relevant in a different format is just so refreshing. They want to learn, they want to engage. And I mean, with students these days and the manner in which they engage on social media and their phones, they don't want to see text upon text. They want to see everything visually. So that works lovely. And as you said, the manner in which you present your course in Sunlearn is so important, because trying to navigate through different tabs, so you've got it set up as a weekly tab option instead of the topics mode. And I've attended a course on hybrid learning, and that was just trying to get academics, and it was the second course during the COVID pandemic, but to help other lecturers, either introductory or at an advanced level learn how to use, well, Moodle, and now it's Sunlearn here, but to set up your course structures and access the functionalities, as well as try and bring in other information to put these particular lessons or as you said, the infographic. So there are some functionalities not available on Sunlearn, but I have accessed on Moodle in my previous institution. So I wanted to ask you in particular, you said that the workload was quite a lot. How much were you able to compare the workload for the students in terms of an average time taken to go through the course notes, work on the quizzes, etc.?
So I was not too concerned about comparing to previous years, because my intention with this work was to help them navigate the coursework and to not just feel overwhelmed and not do it. But what I do in my module framework, which I'm going to show here. So first of all, in the module framework, here's the content week by week. Let me just quickly. So here's the theme, what the reading assignment is, what the practicals are, what the projects are, and what the case studies are week by week. But then what I also do is I give them a time budget. So this is also helping them to learn how to, the professional skill of creating a time budget for a project. You know, what do I need to do, and how much time do I need to afford to each activity? So, and this also is important for the lecturer to make sure that you're not overloading the students. So here, 3 times per week, you're meant to be doing a 50-minute lecture, and that's how many hours it is over the semester. Make sure that you're watching the online videos during that time. There are 3 practicals per semester, 3 hours each. The case studies should take you 2 hours, including the quiz, and there's 3 case studies. So, you know, going through all of this and then adding it up to a total for a 15-credit course, 150 hours of work, and this includes self-study and the formal assessments. Setting it out like this helps them to learn how to scope out a project and the time available and how to divide up your time.
I definitely agree, because this is what I'm so comfortable working with, and then also reassuring students that you don't need to spend 10 hours. You only need to spend, for example, as you said, on a case study, 3 hours, etc. So I was trying to push to have this included, this time management, or just this particular information included in our frameworks. But I was just told the documents are too lengthy. And people don't pay attention. But I really feel it should be a consistent document across the faculty, and it should be available. So if you go to I'm sorry I'm taking up time, but if you go to your Sunlearn weekly tab, do you have a time indication there? For example, how much of time students should spend on that activity?
No, not there.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I don't there. But yeah, I think what the other thing is that, you know, this wasn't a standalone event, you know, so this is the module framework. It's not like I gave this to them and then never mentioned it again. So during the semester, I was talking to my students, and I kept on checking with the class rep, how are things going, what's happening. And then, you know, the class rep would come to me and, oh, the students are completely overwhelmed. They've got so many different activities. They don't know what to do. Then I would spend 5 minutes of my time with the students to say, look, just remember, you're not meant to be spending 10 hours on that case study. If you've done 2 hours, maybe 3 hours on that case study, and you haven't finished, you haven't got 100%, move on. You know, it's a small part, and that's also part of developing your professional skill, knowing that you don't have to do everything perfectly, that good enough is good enough, and that there are more valuable ways to spend your time is also a professional skill.
And there's a lot of agreement about time budget, lots of discussion there, but I would so much to hear more from Jaden and then Alden. What I propose is let's first hear Jaden's point and then Alden's, and then hand back to Debbie. Please, Jaden.
Right, thank you very much. And thank you so much, Prof. Blaine, for your presentation. It was really wonderful to see. And really wonderful to see such sound online design happening within the Sunlearn framework. It's really fantastic. I tend to appreciate that to a large extent. One of the things that, so I'm within the Faculty of Medicine and Health Science, and we've been experimenting with very similar things, but trying to create these documents within Sunlearn itself, rather than having an external component and then Sunlearn, which is, we've had a lot of success with it. But it's been great. The question that so that was just a comment. The question that I have really stems from the graphic that you showed, the semantic waves and the retrieval practice. And I really found that helpful. And one of the things that we possibly struggle with here are content modules that struggle with an overload in content. And one of the things that I always shy away with the retrieval process is that I feel like we tend to take too long with student concepts, with the concepts there. How have you navigated what I would imagine your engineering modules to be content heavy? How have you navigated that environment to, again, get through all the content with using retrieval practice?
Can we just hear Alden's question first? Because we have not a lot of time and you'll be able to budget the time accordingly, Debby. Alden.
Thank you. I'm going to make it short. So my question is more regarding the case studies. So some of the students who kind of indicated that the case studies didn't work for them, can you perhaps share some insights onto kind of like what are some of the reasons, except for time, obviously?
That was it.
Thank you.
Time. That was the only reason, was time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So even the people who complained about the time and the work overload, what they said was that they found it valuable to see where the knowledge would be applied when they were engineers, but they are students now and they don't have time to look at where they would eventually use it. But I'm older and wiser and know that it's important. Okay, so to get back to the retrieval practice question, so, you don't have to do a lot. You don't have to redo a lecture. So one of the retrieval practice things is if you have your online videos or your conceptual things, then the students can do that retrieval practice on their own. So when they are navigating that infographic and they come and they're like, okay, I don't understand this, they can go look in the infographic and they say, oh, okay, so that was in the lecture of week 4 on this chapter, and they can go and look at that part of the video again and bring that back into their memory and get that available. So that's one of the beauties of the infographic. And then the other thing is that we had weekly quizzes, so they have a whole lot of content being thrown into their brain. If we go backwards here, where's my little octopus throwing the balls back in the brain? And then at the end of the week, there was a short quiz that was really just like some terms, some basic concepts, and also, again, low stakes quiz. It's really just to prick their memory again and to get them thinking about that. And in the student feedback, they really liked that on that quiz because it flagged in their mind what I have never heard this term before. Am I meant to know this? And then they could go back in that week and go and see where that was and so on. So it comes back to, I think, the having different learning opportunities, small tasks, bigger tasks, and interleaved, all of this practice interleaved, that helps them to do this retrieval practice without spending a lot of time doing it.
Good. I hope that answers the question. I think, Jaden, we still have a few more minutes. I was rushing you, it seems to me, unnecessarily. Any further questions, colleagues? We do note that load shedding starts for many of us at 2. I'm going to, there is another hand. How wonderful. Stephen, I think is your name there, and then Marinette, sorry.
Thanks, Heather. Thanks, Debby. That was really inspirational and intimidating, I must admit. My question is, it may come across a little bit negative, and I don't mean it like that at all. Did the students engage with the infographic? So let me just take a step back. So my understanding is that you had this infographic document, this PDF, and in addition to that, on Sunday, you had the blocks for each of the weeks, where you had the material that has to cover in each week. So did the students engage with that PDF document? It's obviously a very valuable document, but and do you know whether or not they used it and how they found that document?
So some of them definitely did, because in the student feedback, if you look, we highlighted the different, like the projects, the case studies, the face-to-face lectures, the online videos. We asked about each, you know, how valuable did you find this? So there were definitely students who did engage with it, and there were other students who never used it at all. So I think that's the thing that I have realized. If you're going to provide multiple learning modes and different ways of doing things, then you're not going to engage everybody all at the same time. Some people are going to use it, some people not. Some people are visual learners, some people want to do activities and so on. And it doesn't matter if all of them use it or not. The point is that there are multiple opportunities for the students to engage with the curriculum and with the content. And so that's, I kind of try to not get stuck on, is everybody in my class? Is everybody watching the videos? Is everybody using the infographic?
Sure, that turned out to be a really important question. Thanks, Stephen. Marinette, and thanks for the answer, Debbie.
I'll be very quick. Maybe I'm preaching to the choir here, but I was wondering for just a couple advice of how do you take your colleagues along on this journey of teaching and learning? How do you make other lecturers excited about these kind of things if they don't necessarily have an inherent love for teaching and learning like you obviously do? Do you have some tips or advice, or have you had some stumbling blocks about that?
So I definitely have had stumbling blocks. There's definitely not a wide buy-in for putting this amount of effort. A lot of people see it as spoon feeding, as not you know, that students should be scaffolding their own learning, that they should be doing their own time budgets, that they should be making their own infographics, that we shouldn't be doing this for them. And that's why I'm giving this seminar, is to try and get more people to buy into doing this. But I think you know, in fact, a couple of weeks back, I was at a workshop with some other colleagues who are also advocates for teaching and learning. In fact, a few of the teaching fellows were also at that, and I was angry and I was despondent and I was demotivated, because I thought, I'm doing all of this work, and a big part of it is to try and share this with my colleagues and convince them that this is worthwhile doing. And I was just crippled by the systemic environment and how difficult it is with our time constraints, with our resource constraints and everything, to do this, and how even people who might want to do this just don't have the resources and the time to do this, and so it's not going to get done. And luckily, through conversations, critical conversations with colleagues and through a support network, and I'm here today giving this lecture and being positive. And that's kind of why I framed it within our value structure, within our policy, within our strategic vision. Because as an engineer, and having read up about leadership principles, project management and everything, you need buy-in from your stakeholders in order for a project to win. And you're not going to get that. Change management is slow, transformation is painful, and yeah, you've just got to keep on trying.
Wow, that's actually so beautiful. And Debbie, as you said, that's why you're here, but that's also why you linked it specifically to our shared values, you know, as lecturers, as academics here. And I see that there are more than one response, you know, really positively to that. Anthea and also Sharon saying, start with those that buy in and take it from there. Marinette, I was actually just wondering if you had a last word to say, and there I see your comment. Would you like to open your mic?
No, not really. I just want to say thank you. It's wonderful. I think when you get respondent like Debbie was saying, to have these opportunities to actually hear from people who are as passionate as you want to be about teaching. So thanks.
Yeah, Debby.
I see there's a comment there that all the hours spent working on the infographic is equivalent to working on a manuscript, but is not recognized in the same way. I'm often discouraged because of that, and thanks for pioneering the way forward to focus on this. And, you know, if I look at my career development, there were many people who told me early on, don't waste your time on teaching and learning. It's not going to get you promoted. It's not going to get you recognized. But also, if you do any kind of life coaching or leadership management or anything like that, you also have to follow your heart and what's important to you. And I think we are in an environment where external validation of our efforts is so important. But there is a lot that goes to be said for feeling in your heart and your soul that you're doing the right thing.
I think that's the best way to end this. Thank you. Thank you so much, Debby. And I think we're going to be cut off soon, but I see Gareth agrees and there's lots of hearts going out. I also want to invite colleagues to make contact with your faculty teaching and learning advisor if you do feel despondent. And I want to invite you to please give us feedback, because that way we can formalize this inspiration and, you know, how much this actually does mean. So the link there that Lucy posted, it is really that important. Also remember, we together form a community of practice where you do get the recognition for your excellent work. So thanks, Debby, for your excellent work. To me, it is really, really amazing how you managed to integrate holistically so many things. Beautifully done. Thank you. We really appreciate it.
If there's a social scientist out there who can help me now put this together as a theoretical framework, I'd really like some help, because I have no idea how to do that.
There's an invitation.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thanks
and
a
thanks
million,
for all the
Debby.
comments.
Thank you. Have a nice weekend, everyone. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.